Lin Wei surveyed the sprawling cityscape from her penthouse office, the city lights twinkling like a million fallen stars. Below, the relentless pulse of Shanghai throbbed, a symphony of car horns, distant sirens, and the murmur of millions of lives. She was the conductor of this urban orchestra, the CEO of Wei Industries, a woman who had clawed her way to the top of the corporate food chain. They called her the Ice Queen, a moniker she wore like a badge of honor. Her intelligence was razor sharp, her ambition boundless, and her ruthlessness legendary. Boardroom battles were her arenas, mergers and acquisitions her conquests. She had built an empire on a foundation of calculated risks and shrewd decisions, leaving a trail of defeated rivals in her wake. No room for sentiment in business, she'd often say, her voice as crisp and cool as the champagne she favored. It's about strategy, execution, and ultimately, winning. But power, as Lin Wei knew, came with a price. Her ascent had been paved with broken alliances and bruised egos. She had made enemies, powerful men who seethed in the shadows, their fortunes diminished, their pride wounded. She knew they wouldn't forget, wouldn't forgive. "Chairman Wei," her assistant's voice crackled through the intercom, "Mr. Zhao is here for your, private meeting." Lin Wei smirked. Zhao, one of the fallen, a once powerful tycoon whose empire she had dismantled with ruthless efficiency. He had vowed revenge, his threats veiled but venomous. She had dismissed them as the impotent rage of a defeated man. Perhaps she had been too complacent. Zhao entered, his face a mask of forced civility, his eyes burning with a cold fury. He carried a briefcase, its contents unknown. Lin Wei, her instinct screaming, reached for the panic button under her desk. Too late. Zhao lunged, the briefcase flying open, a glint of metal catching the light. Not a gun, but a knife, its blade honed to a deadly edge. Lin Wei, her mind still processing the betrayal, the sheer audacity of the attack, felt a searing pain in her chest, a sudden coldness spreading through her veins. Then, darkness. She awoke to the scent of incense and the sound of hushed whispers. Disoriented, she opened her eyes, expecting the sterile white of a hospital ceiling. Instead, she saw intricately carved wooden beams, silk hangings depicting mythical beasts, and the worried faces of women in elaborate robes. Princess Lianhua, can you hear us?" one of the women asked, her voice laced with concern. "Lianhua? Princess?" Lin Wei tried to speak, to question, to demand answers, but only a weak groan escaped her lips. She tried to sit up, to assess her surroundings, but her body felt heavy, unfamiliar. She glanced down at her hands, small, delicate, adorned with jade rings. These were not her hands. This was not her body. Panic surged through her, a wave of disorientation and disbelief. She was in a palace, a lavish chamber filled with antique furniture and unfamiliar objects. The women surrounding her, their faces etched with concern, spoke in a language she didn't understand, their words a confusing jumble of sounds. Memories, fragmented and disjointed, flickered through her mind. A forgotten princess, a neglected daughter, a life of isolation and insignificance. Lianhua, that was her name now. And this was her new reality. Lin Wei, the Ice Queen, the CEO who had ruled the corporate world with an iron fist, was gone. She had fallen, betrayed, murdered, and somehow, inexplicably, she had been reborn into a world of emperors and concubines, of courtly intrigue and ancient traditions, a world where she was nothing but a forgotten princess, a pawn in a game she didn't understand. But Lin Wei, even in this unfamiliar body, in this strange new world, was not one to be underestimated. The fire of ambition still burned within her, the strategic mind still sharp, the will to power undiminished. She had fallen, yes, but she would rise again. She would learn the rules of this new game. She would master its intricacies, and she would conquer it, just as she had conquered the world she had left behind. The memories came in fragments, like shards of a broken mirror reflecting a life she barely recognized. Lianhua, the forgotten princess, the unwanted daughter of a concubine who had died in childbirth, a life spent in the shadows of the opulent imperial palace, ignored, neglected, a ghost haunting the gilded corridors. Her chambers were in a remote wing of the palace, a stark contrast to the lavish apartments of the emperor's favored children. The furniture was old, the tapestries faded, the air thick with the scent of dust and decay. Her only companions were her maidservants, women who pitied her, but were powerless to change her circumstances. Poor Princess Lianhua, they would whisper amongst themselves, their voices filled with a mixture of sympathy and fear. She is like a wilted flower, forgotten and unloved. They treated her with a deference born of pity, their kindness a small consolation in a world that had deemed her insignificant. They brought her simple meals, mended her worn clothes, and tried to shield her from the casual cruelty of the court. But the whispers followed her, the snide remarks, the averted gazes, the barely concealed disdain. She was the emperor's disgrace, a reminder of his indiscretion, a stain on the pristine image of the imperial family. "Look, there she goes!" a young nobleman sneered, his voice dripping with contempt as Lianhua passed by, her head bowed, her eyes fixed on the ground. The forgotten princess, the concubine's daughter. What a shame she wasn't born a boy. Then perhaps she would have been worth something. His companions laughed, their cruelty echoing through the halls, their words like daggers piercing Lianhua's heart. She had learned to endure such insults, to mask the pain with a stoic indifference. But inside, the wounds festered. The resentment grew, the fire of rebellion smoldered. Lin Wei, the woman who had once ruled a corporate empire, found it difficult to reconcile herself with this new reality. The power, the control, the respect she had commanded in her previous life were gone, replaced by a helplessness that was both frustrating and infuriating. She spent hours pacing her chambers, her mind racing, trying to make sense of her situation, to reconcile the memories of her past life with the reality of her present existence. She studied the people around her, their customs, their language, their intricate web of relationships. She observed the court, its rituals, its hierarchies, its subtle power dynamics. And as she did, a realization dawned on her. This empire, for all its outward splendor, was rotting from within. The emperor, old and frail, was more concerned with his legacy than with the welfare of his people. The court was a viper's nest of intrigue and ambition, the nobles vying for power, their loyalty as fleeting as the changing winds. The provinces were restless, their governors more interested in enriching themselves than in serving the empire. Lin Wei, the CEO, saw opportunity where others saw only tradition and stagnation. She saw a system ripe for disruption, a throne vulnerable to a cunning mind and a ruthless ambition. The fire that had driven her to the top of the corporate world rekindled, its flames now fueled by a new purpose, a new challenge. She was Lianhua, the forgotten princess, the unwanted daughter. But she was also Lin Wei, the Ice Queen, the woman who had never known defeat. And as she looked out at the sprawling palace, the symbol of an empire that had ignored her, humiliated her, underestimated her, a chilling smile curved her lips. They had made her a pawn in their game. Now she would play her own game, a game of power, of strategy, of revenge. And she would win. Lin Wei, now inhabiting the shell of Princess Lianhua, found the imperial court a baffling mix of stifling formality and simmering chaos. The elaborate rituals, the endless kowtowing, the obsession with lineage and rank. It was all so inefficient, so irrational. Where were the spreadsheets, the quarterly reports, the data-driven decisions? This would never fly in a boardroom, she thought, stifling a sigh as she watched a gaggle of concubines simper and scheme over the emperor's fleeting attention. They're playing checkers, while I'm playing chess. She observed the court with a detached amusement, her modern mindset analyzing the players, their motivations, their strengths and weaknesses. The emperor, a doddering old man obsessed with his legacy, was clearly losing his grip on power. His sons, the crown prince and the war general prince, circled the throne like hungry wolves, their rivalry thinly veiled beneath a veneer of filial piety. The crown prince, a scholar and a politician, held sway over the court, his influence rooted in his control of the bureaucracy and his network of alliances. The war general prince, a charismatic and battle-hardened warrior, commanded the loyalty of the military, his power base residing in the legions stationed throughout the empire. Classic power struggle, Lianhua mused, her lips curving into a faint smile. Divide and conquer. Textbook strategy. She saw the court as a corporation, the throne as the ultimate prize, and she, the forgotten princess, the overlooked pawn, was suddenly a player in the game. The realization was exhilarating, a jolt of adrenaline that reawakened the dormant CEO within her. They think I'm a nobody? She thought, her eyes gleaming with a predatory glint, a discarded princess with no ambition, no influence, no threat. They couldn't be more wrong. She began to gather information, subtly, discreetly. She listened to the gossip of the maidservants, the hushed conversations of the courtiers, the veiled threats and promises exchanged in the corridors of power. She learned the language, the customs, the unspoken rules that govern this intricate world. And as she did, the seeds of ambition began to sprout, taking root in the fertile ground of her discontent. She had been a CEO, a master of strategy and manipulation. She had built an empire from scratch, outmaneuvered her rivals, and crushed her enemies. Could she do it again in this strange new world, with its unfamiliar rules and ancient traditions? The challenge was daunting, but the thrill of the game, the allure of power, was irresistible. Lin Wei, the Ice Queen, was dead. But Lianhua, the forgotten princess, was about to awaken, and the imperial court, with its petty squabbles and blind ambitions, was about to learn that a CEO, even in the body of a princess, was a force to be reckoned with. Lianhua knew that a sudden grab for power would be foolish. She was, after all, a forgotten princess with no official position, no allies, and a reputation for insignificance. She needed to be subtle, strategic, to build her influence slowly, carefully, like a spider weaving a web. Her opportunity came in the form of a seemingly minor problem, a plague of locusts that threatened the imperial gardens. The court, obsessed with symbolism and superstition, saw the infestation as a bad omen, a sign of the emperor's waning favor with the heavens. The emperor, already anxious about his declining health and the growing unrest in the provinces, was particularly agitated. "Find a solution!" he had thundered at his advisors, his voice echoing through the council chambers. "Rid the gardens of these pests before they devour everything in sight." The advisors, a collection of scholars and bureaucrats, were baffled. They consulted ancient texts, performed elaborate rituals, and offered a variety of ineffective solutions, ranging from burning incense to sacrificing livestock. The locusts, however, remained unimpressed. Lianhua, observing this from the sidelines, saw her chance. She had read about locusts in her previous life, about their behavior, their vulnerabilities, their susceptibility to certain natural predators. She approached the head gardener, a kindly old man named Lao Chen, who had always treated her with a respectful kindness. "Lao Chen," she said, her voice gentle but firm, "I believe I have a solution to the locust problem." Lao Chen, surprised by her unexpected intervention, raised his eyebrows. "Princess Lianhua," he said, his voice laced with surprise, "you have a solution? But the scholars, the advisors—" "They are looking in the wrong places," Lianhua interrupted, her voice confident. "The answer lies not in ancient texts, but in nature itself." She explained her plan, detailing the introduction of specific birds known to prey on locusts, the use of natural repellents, and the strategic manipulation of the insect's breeding cycle. Lao Chen, initially skeptical, was impressed by her knowledge, her logic, her confidence. "It is worth a try, princess," he agreed, his eyes twinkling with a newfound hope. Lianhua, with Lao Chen's help, implemented her plan. Within weeks, the locusts were gone, the gardens restored to their former glory. The emperor, overjoyed, showered Lao Chen with praise and rewards, unaware of the true architect of the solution. But word of Lianhua's intervention spread through the court, carried by the whispers of the servants, the surprised murmurs of the courtiers. The emperor's advisors, their pride wounded, their incompetence exposed, were forced to acknowledge her contribution. Even the crown prince and the war general prince, their rivalry momentarily forgotten, cast curious glances in her direction. Lianhua, however, remained unassuming, her demeanor modest, her ambition carefully concealed. She had made her first move, a subtle display of her intelligence and resourcefulness. She had planted a seed of doubt in the minds of those who had underestimated her, a seed of curiosity in those who had ignored her. And as she watched the court react, Their surprise, their curiosity, their grudging admiration, a quiet smile touched her lips. The game had begun, and she, the forgotten princess, the unexpected player, was just getting started. Crown Prince Yan was the embodiment of scholarly refinement. Pale and slender, with long, delicate fingers better suited to calligraphy than a sword, he navigated the court with the quiet confidence of a man who knew the power of words and alliances. His brother, Prince Zhao, the war general, was a different breed entirely. Tall and muscular, with a booming laugh and a swaggering gait, he exuded the raw power of the battlefield, his presence a constant reminder of the empire's military might. Their rivalry was an open secret, a simmering tension that crackled beneath the surface of courtly decorum. Jian, the elder, held the legitimate claim to the throne, but Zhao, the favored son, commanded the loyalty of the army. They circled each other like predators, their smiles masking a deep-seated animosity, their every action a calculated move in the game of succession. Lianhua, observing them from the periphery, found their rivalry almost amusing. It was so predictable. The scholar and the warrior, the politician and the general, the classic dichotomy of power. They were so focused on each other, so consumed by their own ambitions, that they had completely overlooked her. They see me as a non-entity, she mused, a sly smile playing on her lips. A forgotten princess with no influence, no ambition, no threat. How convenient. She began to subtly manipulate events, playing the brothers against each other, exploiting their weaknesses, fueling their rivalry. She would let slip a seemingly innocuous comment about Xian's growing influence over the emperor, planting a seed of doubt in Zhao's mind. Then she would subtly praise Zhao's military prowess in the presence of Xian's allies, fanning the flames of their insecurity. She used her newfound knowledge of courtly customs and traditions to her advantage, navigating the intricate web of alliances with a deftness that surprised even herself. She would offer a well-placed compliment to a powerful concubine, a discreet suggestion to an influential minister, a subtle gesture of support to a rising faction. Her actions were small, almost invisible to the untrained eye, but they had an effect, a ripple effect that spread through the court, shifting the balance of power, creating cracks in the brothers' carefully constructed facades. Jian, sensing a growing discontent amongst his allies, began to suspect Zhao of undermining his influence. He tightened his grip on the bureaucracy, issuing edicts, reshuffling officials, and consolidating his power base. Zhao, in turn, reacted by strengthening his military presence in the capital, his legions a silent threat to Xian's authority. Lianhua watched their escalating rivalry with a detached amusement. She was the puppet master, pulling the strings, orchestrating the dance of power. She had no intention of choosing sides, no desire to become a pawn in their game. She was playing her own game, a game of long-term strategy, a game where the ultimate prize was the throne itself. They think they're playing me, she thought, her eyes gleaming with a predatory glint. But it is I who am playing them, and when the time is right, I will make my move and they will both fall before me. Her confidence grew with each passing day, fueled by her successes, her growing influence, the subtle shifts in the court's dynamics. She was no longer the forgotten princess, the neglected daughter. She was a force to be reckoned with, a player in the Game of Thrones, a woman who dared to challenge the established order. And as she watched the brothers' rivalry escalate, she knew that her time was coming, that the throne, the ultimate symbol of power, was within her grasp. Lianhua's influence spread like wildfire through the dry tinder of the imperial court. It wasn't a blazing inferno, but a subtle shift in the wind, a whisper of change that unsettled the established order. She had become a sought-after confidant, her sharp mind and unconventional perspective attracting those who were dissatisfied with the status quo. One of her first allies was Lady Mei, a high-ranking concubine who had grown weary of the emperor's neglect and the empress's disdain. Mei, intelligent and ambitious, saw in Lianhua a kindred spirit, a woman who understood the subtle art of courtly manipulation. "Princess," Mei had said, her voice a silken whisper, "your insights are refreshing. The court has grown stagnant, blinded by tradition and fear. We need a new perspective, a fresh approach." Lianhua, recognizing an opportunity, had offered Mei her friendship and her strategic advice. She had helped Mei navigate the treacherous currents of the harem, outmaneuvering her rivals, securing the emperor's fleeting attention and solidifying her position. "You have a gift, princess," Mei had said, her eyes gleaming with gratitude and admiration. "A gift for strategy, for seeing the unseen, for turning weakness into strength." Lianhua's reputation grew with each subtle victory, each whispered success. She had become a whisper in the corridors of power, a name associated with cunning, with influence, with the ability to make things happen. Then came the scandal. A minor official, entrusted with the collection of taxes, was discovered to be embezzling funds, lining his pockets while the empire's coffers dwindled. The emperor, furious, demanded a swift investigation and a public execution. The crown prince, eager to demonstrate his control over the bureaucracy, launched a thorough inquiry, his investigators scouring records, interrogating witnesses, and following the trail of corruption. Lianhua, however, had already anticipated the scandal. She had observed the official's lavish lifestyle, his sudden acquisition of wealth, his discreet meetings with shady merchants. She had gathered evidence, subtly, discreetly, waiting for the right moment to reveal it. She presented her findings to the war general prince, Zhao, knowing that he would relish the opportunity to expose the corruption within Xian's domain. Zhao, impressed by her initiative and her intelligence, used the information to publicly discredit the crown prince, painting him as incompetent and negligent. "Brother," Zhao had declared in the council chambers, his voice booming with righteous indignation, "it seems your officials are more interested in enriching themselves than in serving the empire. Perhaps it is time for a change of leadership, a leader who can restore order and integrity to our court." The scandal shook the court, weakening Xian's position and strengthening Zhao's. The emperor, his trust in Xian, shaken, began to look more favorably upon Zhao, his military prowess, and his apparent zeal for justice, appealing to his anxieties about the empire's stability. Lianhua, watching the fallout from the sidelines, allowed herself a small smile of satisfaction. She had played her cards well, manipulating events, shifting alliances, and elevating her own position in the process. The brothers, once dismissive of her, now saw her as a player in the game, a potential ally or a dangerous adversary. And as the whispers of her power grew louder, as her influence spread further, she knew that the time was coming for her to make her move, to step out of the shadows and claim her rightful place in the spotlight. Duke Xi was a man shrouded in an enigma. Ruler of the empire's wealthiest and most powerful province, he was known for his shrewdness, his military prowess, and his unnerving ability to see through facades. His gaze was like a hawk's, sharp and piercing, capable of dissecting a person's soul with a single glance. He had arrived in the capital for the annual tribute ceremony, a grand spectacle of pomp and circumstance where provincial rulers presented their offerings to the emperor. The court buzzed with his presence, the nobles vying for his attention, the concubines fluttering around him like moths drawn to a flame. But Duke Xi remained aloof, his expression unreadable, his eyes scanning the crowd with a detached curiosity. His gaze fell upon Lianhua, the forgotten princess, who stood at the edge of the gathering, seemingly insignificant, yet radiating a quiet confidence that intrigued him. He had heard the whispers, the rumors of her growing influence, her strategic mind, her uncanny ability to manipulate events. He watched her, his eyes narrowing as he observed her interactions, her subtle gestures, the way she commanded attention without demanding it. "Interesting," he murmured to himself, a flicker of amusement in his eyes. "She is not what she seems." He approached her, his presence commanding attention, his aura of power sending a ripple through the court. Lianhua, sensing his scrutiny, turned to face him, her expression carefully neutral, her eyes meeting his with a calm defiance. "Princess Lianhua," he said, his voice deep and resonant, "we have not been formally introduced. I am Duke Xi." "Duke Xi," Lianhua replied, inclining her head in a polite gesture. "Your reputation precedes you. And yours, princess, has been a source of much curiosity," he said, his eyes fixed on hers, their gaze a silent battle of wills. "Curiosity?" Lianhua echoed, her voice carefully modulated, betraying no hint of her inner thoughts. "Indeed," Duke Xi continued, his lips curving into a faint smile, "a forgotten princess, suddenly thrust into the spotlight, A strategic mind hidden beneath a veil of insignificance? It is, intriguing. Lianhua met his gaze, her own smile a mirror of his. Perhaps, Duke Xi, you are reading too much into appearances. I am merely a princess, fulfilling my duties to the court. Perhaps, he conceded, his voice laced with a hint of skepticism. But I have learned to trust my instincts, princess. And my instincts tell me that you are more than you appear to be. Their conversation continued, a delicate dance of words and veiled intentions. Duke Xi probed, his questions sharp, his observations keen. Lianhua parried, her answers carefully crafted, her true motives concealed. They circled each other like predators, each assessing the other's strengths, their weaknesses, their potential threat. Lianhua found herself drawn to his intelligence, his power, the aura of danger that surrounded him. He was a man who saw through her facade, who recognized the ambition burning beneath her carefully constructed mask of indifference. And yet, there was a hint of respect in his eyes, a flicker of admiration that intrigued her. Duke Xi, in turn, was fascinated by her. He had never met a woman like her, a woman who could match his intellect, his cunning, his ambition. He saw in her a potential ally, a dangerous adversary, a wild card that could disrupt the delicate balance of power in the court. Their initial interaction left both of them with a sense of unease and anticipation. They had recognized in each other a kindred spirit, a rival, a potential threat, and as they parted ways, their gazes lingering. They knew that their paths would cross again, their destinies intertwined in the complex game of power that was about to unfold. Lianhua, with the precision of a surgeon, began to dissect the fragile web of alliances that held the court together. She was the invisible hand, guiding events, whispering suggestions, planting seeds of doubt and discord. She played the brothers against each other, offering support to one while subtly undermining the other, her actions a delicate balancing act on the tightrope of courtly intrigue. She focused her attention on the war general prince, Zhao. He was the easier target, his ambition more blatant, his trust more easily gained. She presented herself as a sympathetic ear, a confidant who understood his frustrations, his resentment towards his elder brother, his desire for recognition and power. Your Highness, she would say, her voice soft and soothing, your talents are wasted in the shadow of the crown prince. You are a warrior, a leader, a man destined for greatness. Do not let your birthright be stolen from you. She fed his ego, praising his military victories, highlighting his popularity with the people, subtly suggesting that he was the true heir to the throne. She offered him strategic advice, helping him navigate the complexities of the court, outmaneuvering his rivals, and strengthening his position. At the same time, she subtly undermined the crown prince Xian. She leaked information about his secret meetings with discontented nobles, his attempts to consolidate power, his growing paranoia about Zhao's influence. She whispered doubts about his loyalty to the emperor, his ambition to seize the throne before his time. She used her growing network of allies to spread these rumors, her whispers amplified by the echoes of the court. Lady Mei, the concubine, proved to be a valuable asset, her influence in the harem extending to the emperor's own chambers. She planted seeds of doubt in the emperor's mind, suggesting that Xian was plotting against him, that he was more interested in power than in filial piety. The emperor, already weakened by age and illness, became increasingly suspicious of Xian, his trust eroded by the whispers of betrayal. He began to favor Zhao, his military strength and his apparent loyalty offering a sense of security in a court rife with intrigue. Lianhua watched the brothers' rivalry escalate with a detached satisfaction. She was the architect of their discord, the puppet master pulling the strings, orchestrating their downfall. She had no loyalty to either of them, no desire to see one brother triumph over the other. Her goal was to weaken them both, to create a power vacuum that she could fill, to seize the throne for herself. And as the court descended into chaos, as the brothers' struggle for power threatened to tear the empire apart, Lianhua consolidated her own position. She gained more allies, attracted by her growing influence, her strategic mind, her promise of a new order. She cultivated relationships with powerful ministers, influential nobles, and even discontented generals, weaving a web of support that extended beyond the confines of the palace. She was no longer the forgotten princess, the neglected daughter. She was a force to be reckoned with, a player in the Game of Thrones, a woman who dared to challenge the established order. And as the brothers' rivalry reached its climax, she knew that her time was coming, that the throne, the ultimate symbol of power, was within her grasp. The moon cast long, skeletal shadows across the manicured gardens of the imperial palace. A clandestine meeting was taking place, a meeting that could alter the course of the empire. Duke Zi, his expression unreadable in the dim light, stood facing Lin Wei, his keen eyes studying her with an intensity that would have unnerved a lesser woman. "Princess Lin Wei," he began, his voice a low rumble that blended with the rustling of the leaves. "I believe it is time we spoke plainly." Lin Wei, her back straight, her gaze steady, met his eyes without flinching. "Indeed, Duke Zi, I have been expecting this conversation. You have been different," he continued, circling her like a predator assessing its prey. "Your words, your actions, your very presence, they all speak of a knowledge, an understanding that is beyond your years, beyond your station." Lin Wei, a subtle smile playing on her lips, inclined her head in acknowledgement. "You are perceptive, Duke Zi, more so than the fools who surround us." He stopped pacing, his gaze piercing her facade. "I believe you are not who you seem to be, princess. I believe you possess a knowledge, a perspective that is alien to this world." Lin Wei, no longer bothering with pretense, let her smile widen. "Alien? Perhaps, but is that not what makes me valuable? Valuable or dangerous?" Duke Zi countered, his voice laced with a hint of warning. "Both, perhaps," Lin Wei conceded, her voice calm, her confidence unwavering. "But is danger not a necessary component of ambition?" "Ambition?" Duke Zi echoed, his eyes narrowing. "You admit it then. You seek power, princess. The throne itself, perhaps? Is that not the ultimate prize in this game we play?" Lin Wei countered, her voice laced with a challenge. Duke Zi remained silent for a moment, his mind racing, assessing the implications of her words, her ambition, her potential. He had gambled before, risked everything on a hunch, a feeling, a belief in his own judgment. And now he felt that same pull, that same urge to take a chance on this woman, this enigma, who might just be the key to reshaping the empire. "I propose an alliance, princess," he said, his voice firm, his gaze unwavering. "An alliance based on mutual benefit, on a shared vision for a stronger, more prosperous empire." Lin Wei, her eyes gleaming with a predatory glint, inclined her head in acceptance. "An alliance, Duke Zi. A gamble, perhaps, but one I believe we can both win." They discussed their plans, their strategies, their shared vision for the future. Duke Zi, with his military might and his influence over the provinces, would provide the muscle, the resources, the legitimacy that Lin Wei lacked. Lin Wei, with her sharp mind, her strategic brilliance, and her growing influence within the court, would be the architect of their ascent, the mastermind behind their rise to power. It was a dangerous alliance, a gamble that could cost them everything. But in that moonlit garden, amidst the whispers of the wind and the shadows of the palace, a bond was forged, a pact sealed, a partnership that would challenge the very foundations of the empire. And as they parted ways, their gazes locked in a silent promise, they knew that the game had just begun, and the stakes had never been higher. The crown prince, Xian, was a man accustomed to control. He held the court in his grasp, his influence woven into the fabric of the bureaucracy, his alliances carefully cultivated over years of patient maneuvering. But Lin Wei's sudden rise, her growing influence, her undeniable intelligence, had unsettled him. He saw her as a threat, a wild card that could disrupt his carefully laid plans for succession. He decided to act, to strike before she could consolidate her power, to discredit her, to expose her as a fraud, a danger to the empire. He chose his weapon carefully, a rumor, a whisper of treason, a suggestion that she was conspiring with a foreign power. He leaked the rumor through his network of spies and informants, planting the seed of doubt in the minds of the court. He fabricated evidence, forged letters, and arranged clandestine meetings that hinted at Lin Wei's treachery. He even managed to convince Lady Mei, Lin Wei's ally in the harem, to sow discord, to whisper doubts about her loyalty to the emperor. "Princess Lin Wei," Mei had said, her voice laced with feigned concern. I have heard, disturbing rumors. They say you have been meeting with envoys from the northern barbarians, that you are plotting to overthrow the emperor, to seize the throne for yourself. Lianhua, though surprised by Mei's betrayal, quickly recovered her composure. She recognized Xian's hand in this, his desperation to eliminate her a testament to her growing influence. But she was not one to be easily defeated. She had faced boardroom battles, corporate espionage, and hostile takeovers. This was just another game, another challenge to her strategic mind. She countered Xian's move with a swiftness and precision that left him reeling. She used her own network of informants, the servants and eunuchs who had witnessed Xian's clandestine activities, to gather evidence of his own treachery. She exposed his secret meetings, his fabricated evidence, his attempts to manipulate the emperor. She presented her findings to the war general Prince Zhao, knowing that he would relish the opportunity to discredit his brother. Zhao, his ambition fueled by Lianhua's revelations, publicly accused Xian of treason, of plotting to usurp the throne. Brother, Zhao had declared in the council chambers, his voice booming with righteous anger. It seems you are not as loyal as you pretend to be. You have been conspiring against our father, spreading lies about Princess Lianhua, and undermining the stability of the empire. The court erupted in chaos, the nobles shocked by the accusations, their alliances shifting like the sands in a desert storm. The emperor, his trust in Xian shattered, ordered his arrest, confining him to his quarters. Lianhua, watching the fallout from the sidelines, allowed herself a small smile of triumph. She had outmaneuvered Xian, turned his own weapon against him, and emerged from the confrontation stronger than ever. The brothers' rivalry, which she had so skillfully manipulated, had consumed them both, leaving her as the last one standing. And as the court reeled from the revelations, as the balance of power shifted once again, Lianhua knew that her time was coming, that the throne, the ultimate prize, was within her reach. She had played the game, and she had won. Prince Zhao, the war general, was a man of action, not words. With the crown prince disgraced and confined, he saw his opportunity to seize control. His power base lay in the military, the legions stationed throughout the empire, and he intended to use it. He began by subtly increasing the military presence in the capital, his soldiers patrolling the streets, their armor gleaming in the sunlight, a silent reminder of his authority. He courted the support of the generals, showering them with gifts, promising them promotions, and hinting at a future where the military would hold sway over the court. He even reached out to the provincial governors, offering them autonomy and increased resources in exchange for their loyalty. The empire needs a strong hand, he declared in a private meeting with his generals, his voice booming with confidence. A leader who understands the language of war, who can protect our borders, who can quell the unrest that threatens to tear us apart. He painted himself as the savior, the only one who could restore order and stability to the empire. And many, swayed by his charisma, his military prowess, and the growing fear of chaos, believed him. Lianhua, however, saw through his facade. She recognized his ambition, his hunger for power, his willingness to use force to achieve his goals. She knew that if he succeeded in seizing control, the empire would descend into a military dictatorship, its fragile peace shattered by the clash of arms. She decided to counter his move not with force, but with strategy, with cunning, with the very weapons that had brought her this far. She used her alliances, her understanding of court politics, her ability to manipulate events, to undermine Zhao's support, to expose his ambition, to turn his own strength against him. She began by subtly leaking information about Zhao's plans to the remaining loyalists in the court, the ministers and advisors who still clung to the hope of a peaceful transition of power. She warned them of the dangers of a military takeover, the potential for civil war, the erosion of their own influence. Prince Zhao is a wolf in sheep's clothing, she whispered to a trusted minister, her voice laced with concern. He speaks of stability, but his actions speak of tyranny. He seeks to control the empire through fear, not through justice. She also reached out to the Empress Dowager, the emperor's mother, a woman who wielded considerable influence despite her advanced age. The Empress Dowager, though wary of Lianhua's ambition, recognized the threat posed by Zhao's military maneuvering. Princess Lianhua, she had said, her voice frail but firm, you have proven yourself to be a shrewd observer of the court. I believe you have the intelligence, the cunning to counter Prince Zhao's ambitions. With the Empress Dowager's support, Manhwa orchestrated a series of subtle maneuvers that chipped away at Zhao's power base. She exposed his secret deals with the provincial governors, revealing their corruption and their disloyalty to the empire. She spread rumors of his plans to increase taxes, to conscript more soldiers, to impose martial law. She even managed to sow discord within his own ranks, playing on the general's jealousies and insecurities, highlighting their differences and subtly suggesting that Zhao was favoring some over others. Zhao, sensing his support dwindling, his plans unraveling, grew increasingly frustrated. He had underestimated Lianhua, her influence, her ability to manipulate events. He had seen her as a pawn in his game, but she had turned out to be a player in her own right, a formidable opponent who could match his cunning, his ambition, his ruthlessness. He confronted her one evening, his anger barely contained, his voice a low growl that echoed through the palace gardens. "Princess Lianhua," he said, his eyes blazing with fury, "you have been interfering in my affairs, undermining my authority, spreading lies about my intentions." Lianhua, her expression calm, her gaze steady, met his anger with an icy composure. "Your Highness," she replied, her voice soft but firm, "I am merely protecting the interests of the empire. Your ambitions threaten our stability, our peace, our very future." "Ambitions?" Zhao scoffed, his voice dripping with disdain. "You accuse me of ambition? You, who have risen from obscurity to become the most influential woman in the court. You who whisper in the emperor's ear, who manipulate the nobles, who play us all like puppets?" "Perhaps, Your Highness," Lianhua conceded, her lips curving into a faint smile. "But my ambition serves the empire, not myself. I seek to build a better future, a future where justice prevails, where the strong do not prey on the weak, where the people's voices are heard." Zhao, his anger momentarily forgotten, stared at her, his eyes searching hers for a sign of deceit, of weakness, of vulnerability. But he found none. He saw only a woman of unwavering determination, of unyielding ambition, of a power that rivaled his own. He turned away, his shoulders slumped, his defeat acknowledged. He had played the game, and he had lost. Lianhua, the forgotten princess, the unexpected player, had outmaneuvered him, outplayed him, outwitted him. And as he walked away, his footsteps heavy with regret, he knew that the throne, the ultimate prize, was slipping from his grasp. The emperor's reign, once a symbol of unshakable power, had become a fragile house of cards, its stability undermined by the relentless power struggles of his sons. His health, already failing, deteriorated rapidly under the weight of courtly intrigues and the growing unrest in the provinces. He was a puppet king, his strings pulled by the ambitions of the crown prince and the war general prince, his authority eroded by their constant vying for control. Lianhua, observing the emperor's decline, recognized that his weakness was both a vulnerability and an opportunity. His death, whether natural or hastened by intrigue, was inevitable. The question was not if he would fall, but when and how. And she, ever the strategist, was determined to control the narrative, to orchestrate the emperor's downfall in a way that would benefit her own ascent to power. The brothers, consumed by their rivalry, failed to see the bigger picture. They were so focused on each other, so blinded by their own ambitions, that they didn't realize they were both dancing on the edge of a precipice. They were so busy fighting for the throne that they didn't see that the throne itself was about to crumble beneath them. Lianhua, however, saw the opportunity. She understood that the emperor's death would create a power vacuum, a chaotic free-for-all where the strongest, the most cunning, the most ruthless, would seize control, and she was determined to be that person. She began to subtly accelerate the emperor's decline, using her influence within the harem to ensure that he received the best care. She whispered suggestions to the imperial physicians, subtly influencing their diagnoses, their treatments, their prescriptions. She ensured that the emperor was surrounded by those loyal to her, those who would carry out her instructions without question. At the same time, she continued to play the brothers against each other, fueling their rivalry, exacerbating their insecurities, ensuring that they remained focused on each other, distracted from her own machinations. She leaked information about their secret meetings, their hidden agendas, their attempts to secure the throne. She sowed discord among their allies, creating suspicion, mistrust, and betrayal. The emperor, weakened by illness and manipulated by those around him, became increasingly erratic, his decisions impulsive, his judgment clouded. He trusted no one, his paranoia fueled by the whispers of treachery that echoed through the palace. He saw enemies everywhere, even in his own sons. The brothers, sensing the emperor's growing instability, intensified their efforts to seize control. The crown prince Xian attempted to consolidate his power base within the court, using his influence over the bureaucracy to issue edicts, appoint officials, and control the flow of information. The war general Prince Zhao strengthened his grip on the military, his legions a constant presence in the capital, a silent threat to Xian's authority. The tension in the court was palpable, the air thick with anticipation, fear, and ambition. Everyone knew that the emperor's reign was coming to an end, that the battle for succession was about to begin. The only question was, who would emerge victorious? Manhwa, watching the unfolding drama with a detached amusement, knew that the time was approaching. She had laid the groundwork, manipulated the players, orchestrated the events. She was ready to make her move. The emperor's death came swiftly, quietly, in the dead of night. The official announcement, delivered the following morning, spoke of a peaceful passing, a natural end to a long and prosperous reign. But the truth, whispered in the corridors of power, was far more complex. Some said it was a natural death, hastened by the emperor's failing health. Others whispered of poison, of a subtle hand guiding the emperor's demise. And some, those who had seen Lianhua's influence grow, who had witnessed her cunning and her ambition, suspected that she had played a role in the emperor's fall, that she had orchestrated his death as the first step in her own ascent to the throne. But no one could prove anything. Lianhua, as always, had covered her tracks, her actions subtle, her motives concealed. She had played the game, and she had won. The emperor was dead, the throne was vacant, and the battle for succession was about to begin. The emperor's death plunged the imperial court into a maelstrom of grief, confusion, and thinly veiled ambition. The brothers, Xian and Zhao, both declared themselves emperor within hours of each other, their rivalry exploding into open conflict. The court fractured, nobles scrambling to choose sides, alliances shifting like the desert sands. Lianhua, however, remained calm amidst the chaos. This was the moment she had been waiting for, the culmination of her meticulous planning, her patient manipulation, her ruthless ambition. She had anticipated this power struggle, orchestrated it even, and now she was ready to make her final play. She summoned her allies, a diverse group united by their loyalty to her and their belief in her vision for the empire. Lady Mei, the concubine, whose influence in the harem remained strong despite the emperor's death. Lord Darius, the scholar and strategist, whose wisdom and knowledge of courtly intrigue were invaluable. Kale, the former guard, now commander of her personal guard, his loyalty unwavering, his sword ever ready. And Duke Si, the powerful provincial ruler, whose military might and political influence were crucial to her success. "The time has come," she declared, her voice ringing with authority, her eyes blazing with a fire that could consume empires. The brothers are at each other's throats, the court is divided, the empire teeters on the brink of civil war. We will seize this opportunity, we will restore order, and we will claim the throne that is rightfully mine. Her allies, inspired by her confidence and her vision, pledged their support. They had witnessed her rise, her cunning, her unwavering determination. They believed in her ability to lead, to unite, to create a better future for the empire. Lianhua's first move was a bold one. She publicly revealed the truth about the conspiracy that had led to her exile, the fabricated evidence, the bribed officials, the treacherous nobles who had sought to destroy her. She named names, exposed secrets, and shattered the illusions that had held the court captive for so long. The court erupted in outrage, the nobles shocked by the revelations, their alliances crumbling, their loyalties shifting. Xian, already weakened by his previous disgrace, found himself further isolated, his supporters abandoning him, his claims to the throne discredited. Zhao, though initially pleased by Xian's downfall, soon realized that Lianhua's revelations had also weakened his own position. His alliance with the conspirators, his own ambition to seize the throne, were now exposed, his legitimacy questioned. Lianhua, sensing their vulnerability, launched her final assault. She commanded Kale and his guards to arrest both Jian and Zhao, accusing them of treason, of plotting against the empire, of endangering its stability. The brothers, their power bases crumbling, their allies deserting them, were powerless to resist. The court, stunned by the swiftness and audacity of Lianhua's actions, watched in stunned silence as the brothers were dragged away, their dreams of power shattered, their futures uncertain. Lianhua, standing tall amidst the chaos, her eyes blazing with triumph, addressed the court. "Nobles of the empire," she declared, her voice ringing with authority. "The time of deceit and treachery is over. The brothers, blinded by their ambition, have brought us to the brink of ruin. But I, Lianhua, the rightful heir to the throne, will restore order. I will unite our empire, and I will lead us to a new era of prosperity and peace." The court, relieved by the prospect of stability, erupted in cheers, their voices echoing through the palace, their loyalty shifting to the woman who had dared to challenge the old order, who had outmaneuvered the brothers, who had seized control with a cunning and determination that had surprised and impressed them. Lianhua, her heart pounding with triumph, accepted their acclaim, her eyes fixed on the throne that was now hers, the culmination of her long journey, the realization of her ambition. She had played the game, and she had won. The empire was hers. The coronation of Empress Lianhua was a spectacle unlike any the imperial court had witnessed. Gone were the somber tones and hushed whispers that had marked the previous emperor's reign. Instead, the palace throbbed with a vibrant energy, a sense of hope and anticipation that crackled in the air. Lianhua, resplendent in imperial robes of midnight blue and gold, her dragon insignia embroidered in shimmering thread, radiated an aura of power and confidence that captivated the assembled dignitaries. Her first act as empress was a masterstroke of political theater. She publicly pardoned the remaining loyalists of the former emperor, those who had not actively participated in the conspiracy, offering them a chance to prove their loyalty to her reign. This act of clemency, though surprising to many, served to solidify her power base, drawing in those who had been hesitant to support her, uniting the court under her banner. Next, she turned her attention to rewarding her allies, those who had stood by her through the treacherous climb to the throne. Lady Mei, whose influence in the harem had proved invaluable, was granted the title of imperial consort, her position elevated to one of prestige and power. Lord Darius, the wise strategist, was appointed Grand Chancellor, his council now guiding the empire's policies. Kale, the loyal guard, was promoted to General of the Imperial Guard, his unwavering devotion rewarded with a position of immense authority. And Duke Si, whose military might had been crucial to her victory, was granted even greater autonomy over his province, his loyalty cemented through a bond of mutual respect and shared ambition. But Lianhua's vision extended beyond consolidating her power and rewarding her allies. She was determined to modernize the empire, to bring it into a new era of prosperity and progress, drawing on the knowledge and experience she had gained in her previous life. She implemented sweeping reforms, starting with the notoriously corrupt tax system. She abolished the old system, which had burdened the common people while enriching the wealthy elite, and introduced a new, more equitable system based on fair assessments and transparent accounting. Taxes, she declared in a public address, are not a tool for oppression, but a necessary contribution to the welfare of the empire. She invested heavily in infrastructure, recognizing that a strong economy depended on efficient transportation and communication networks. She ordered the construction of new roads, bridges, and canals, facilitating trade, connecting distant regions, and stimulating economic growth. A prosperous empire, she proclaimed, is built on a foundation of solid infrastructure. She revolutionized the education system, establishing new schools and academies that were open to all, regardless of social status or gender. She believed that education was the key to unlocking the potential of her people, to creating a society where talent and merit were valued above lineage and privilege. Knowledge, she asserted, is the greatest weapon against ignorance and oppression. She also reformed the legal system, introducing new laws that were based on principles of justice and fairness. She abolished cruel and unusual punishments, ensured that all citizens were equal before the law, and established a system of checks and balances to prevent corruption and abuse of power. Justice, she declared, is the cornerstone of a civilized society. Her reforms were met with resistance from some quarters. The old guard, those who had benefited from the corrupt systems of the past, clung to their power and privilege, resisting any change that threatened their dominance. But Lianhua, armed with her modern mindset and her unwavering determination, brooked no opposition. She used her authority, her influence, and her growing popularity to overcome their resistance, pushing through her reforms with a relentless efficiency that surprised even her allies. She established a council of advisors, drawing on the expertise of scholars, merchants, and even commoners, ensuring that her decisions were informed by a broad range of perspectives. She encouraged open debate and discussion, fostering a culture of innovation and progress. Her court became a melting pot of ideas, a place where tradition and modernity clashed and blended, where ancient wisdom was tempered by new perspectives. She embraced innovation, encouraging the development of new technologies, new agricultural methods, and new forms of art and expression. And as the empire flourished under her rule, as its economy boomed, its people prospered, and its influence grew, Lianhua's reputation as a wise and just ruler spread far and wide. She was no longer just the empress who had seized the throne. She was Empress Lianhua the Great, the reformer, the innovator, the woman who had brought the empire into a new golden age. The weight of the empire settled upon Lianhua's shoulders like a silken cloak woven with threads of iron. The initial exhilaration of victory, the satisfaction of wielding absolute power, gradually gave way to a profound weariness. The endless stream of petitions, the complex web of alliances, the constant threat of rebellion. It was a burden that grew heavier with each passing day. The woman who had once thrived on the cutthroat competition of the corporate world found herself trapped in a gilded cage, her every move scrutinized, her every decision dissected by the court. The freedom she had tasted in the wastelands, leading her army, her purpose clear, her enemies defined, seemed a distant memory. She had become a master of the game, a skilled manipulator of courtly intrigue. But the game had changed her. The ruthlessness that had once been a tool for survival had become a habit, a reflex. She had crushed her enemies, consolidated her power, and secured her throne. But in the process, had she become the very thing she had fought against? The question haunted her, whispering in the silence of her chambers, echoing in the vast emptiness of the throne room. She looked at her reflection in the polished marble floor, searching for the woman she had once been. The woman who had valued fairness, who had believed in justice. But all she saw was the empress, her face etched with the lines of authority, her eyes hardened by the weight of her decisions. Her relationship with Duke Xi was a complex one, a delicate dance of power and attraction. He was her most trusted advisor, her confidant, the one person who saw through her facade, who understood the burden she carried. Their alliance, forged in the crucible of rebellion, had deepened into a bond of mutual respect, a shared understanding of the complexities of rule. There were moments of intimacy, stolen glances across the council table, a shared laugh at a private joke, a touch of hands that lingered longer than necessary. But their relationship was bound by the constraints of their positions, the weight of their responsibilities, the ever-present threat of betrayal that haunted the corridors of power. Lianhua found herself drawn to his strength, his intelligence, the quiet power that emanated from him. He was the one person she could truly confide in, the one person who understood the loneliness of command, the price of power. But she also feared him, his ambition, his ruthlessness, his potential to become a rival, a threat to her own authority. She had seen the darkness in his eyes, the same darkness that she recognized in her own reflection. One evening, as they worked late in her private study, surrounded by scrolls and maps, the silence broken only by the crackling of the fire and the scratching of their pens, Duke Xi looked up, his gaze meeting hers across the table. "You seem troubled, Your Majesty," he said, his voice soft, his concern evident. Lianhua, unable to hide her weariness, sighed. "The burden is heavy, Xi," she confessed, using his given name for the first time, a subtle shift in their relationship. "I sometimes wonder if I have become the very thing I fought against." Xi, his eyes filled with understanding, rose from his chair and walked towards her, his presence a comforting warmth in the dimly lit room. He placed his hands on her shoulders, his touch gentle but firm, his gaze holding hers. "You are not your predecessors, Lianhua. he said, his voice a low rumble that resonated through her. You have brought justice, prosperity, and stability to the empire. You have earned your power, your authority. Do not doubt yourself. Lianhua, her heart warmed by his words, his touch, leaned into him, her head resting against his chest. The weight of her crown momentarily forgotten, she felt his arms encircle her, his embrace a haven of strength and comfort. Thank you, Z, she whispered, her voice filled with gratitude and a hint of vulnerability she rarely allowed herself to show. They stood there for a long moment, their embrace a silent acknowledgement of their bond, their shared burden, their unspoken desires. Then, with a sigh, they pulled apart, their gazes lingering, their hands brushing as they returned to their work. The challenges remained. The threats persisted. The price of power ever present. But in that moment of shared vulnerability, of unspoken intimacy, Lianhua found a measure of solace, a reminder that she was not alone, that she had an ally, a confidant, perhaps even a lover in the man who had gambled on her, who had helped her seize the throne, who saw the woman beneath the empress. Decades passed, etching lines of wisdom and weariness onto Lianhua's face. Her reign, once a whirlwind of reform and conquest, settled into a period of sustained prosperity and peace. The empire she had forged, a blend of ancient tradition and modern innovation, flourished under her astute rule. She was revered by her people, respected by her allies, and feared by her enemies. History, however, is a fickle mistress. Lianhua's legacy, like that of any powerful ruler, was a complex tapestry woven with threads of admiration and criticism, praise and condemnation. She was remembered as Lianhua the Great, the empress who had modernized the empire, who had brought justice and prosperity to the land, who had ushered in a golden age. Yet whispers persisted, murmurs of the ruthlessness she had displayed in her ascent to power, the sacrifices she had made, the compromises she had accepted. Some whispered that she had become the very thing she had fought against, a tyrant cloaked in the guise of a benevolent ruler. They spoke of the enemies she had crushed, the dissent she had silenced, the price others had paid for her ambition. Lianhua, in the twilight of her life, often pondered her legacy. She had achieved her goals, secured her throne, and transformed the empire. But at what cost? Had the pursuit of power corrupted her? Had the weight of responsibility hardened her heart? She looked back on her journey, from the modern CEO thrust into an ancient world to the empress who had reshaped its destiny. She remembered the shock of her rebirth, the humiliation of her forgotten existence, the fire of ambition that had driven her forward. She recalled the alliances she had forged, the betrayals she had endured, the sacrifices she had made. And she remembered Duke Z, her confidant, her advisor, her something more. Their bond, forged in the crucible of rebellion, had endured through the years, a constant source of strength and support. He had been her rock, her sounding board, the one person who truly understood her, who saw the woman beneath the empress. He had died years ago, his loss leaving a void in her life that could never be filled. One cool autumn evening, as the sun painted the sky in hues of orange and purple, Lianhua sat on the balcony of her private chambers, overlooking the sprawling city that had once been her battleground, now a testament to her vision. The city lights twinkled like a million stars, reflecting the prosperity and peace that had marked her reign. She closed her eyes, imagining the sounds of the city, the laughter of children, the chatter of merchants, the music drifting from open windows. She had built this vibrant, thriving empire. She had shaped its destiny, guided its path, secured its future. But as she listened to the sounds of the city, she also heard the whispers of history, the echoes of her choices, the murmurs of her legacy. Was she a liberator or a conqueror, a benevolent ruler or a ruthless manipulator? The questions lingered, their answers elusive, their implications profound. She opened her eyes, her gaze fixed on the horizon, where the sky met the sea, a vast expanse of endless possibilities. Her legacy, like the ocean, was vast, complex, unfathomable. It was a reflection of her life, her choices, her triumphs, and her compromises. And as the last rays of the sun faded, casting long shadows across the city, Lianhua knew that her legacy would be debated, analyzed, and judged for generations to come. She had played the game, and she had won. But the game, she had learned, was never truly over. It continued, echoing through history, its consequences rippling through time, its final verdict forever uncertain.